gas ourselves up, but we short on breath. Talking about we eating, but who we really cooking. Dreaming about greens, but ain't nobody looking. No land, no acres, no seeds in the ground. When the hunger hits, who's gonna be around? We starving every day, and it just ain't the food. Feeding the hood garbage, got 'em acting a fool. We flossing with rides, stunting with chains, but these bars we spitting just bring more pain. We guilty as hell, preaching all these lies, selling debt to the kids, and we acting surprised. We commercialize the pain, broadcast the grief, tell the youth to hustle, but hide the beef. We glorify the trap, invite them to the flames, just like Reagan brought the crack on planes. Back in the 80s when the streets got soaked, my people, my brothers, all got choked. Reagan said no trades, but we know the deal. He left us in the dirt, man, that shit was real. I was just a shorty watching it unfold, old enough to see how we got sold. War on drugs, but it was war on us. Cops on our necks, no love, no trust. They labeled us thugs, beast on the block, made us kiss the pavement while they cleaned our clock. Prison became business thanks to Reagan's game. Free labor is the truth in America's name. Slavery's dead, man. That's just a word. Read the 13th Amendment, it's still absurd. They lock us in cages, serving time for life. Double digits for wisdom, cutting sharp like a knife. I'm here to say, the chains in the air, it's time we break free, start showing we care. No more flexing for nothing, no more selling out. It's time to rise up, time to end the drought. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. You know how I always get to start independent music. And this morning I got Rashad Lee for my city, and I'll be right back right after this.
Is my city gonna think I did it big enough? I've been on the grind, still they act like I ain't did enough. I've been seeing comments of people telling me give it up. I can hear them talking, but ask me how much I give a fuck, really? You either with me or against me though. Always been a buck with these niggas, what they resent me for. Like I ain't reppin' for my city, bro. Like I ain't trying to put my city on. I remember when I started in this shit. Now it's 2026, I go retarded in this bitch. Try to doubt me, I'ma take this shit as far as I can get. And as for trust, I wouldn't lend this shit as far as I can spit, nigga. We all relate to the zoo and the same. Niggas be feeling like they trapped, like the zoo is the cage. Like we ain't got nowhere to go, so we live in the rage. And play our numbers every day with a glimmer of faith. All the debates on who the hottest is starting to bother me. I give it everything I got so my city be proud of me. I can't explain the sacrifice and what it's taken out of me. So if I'm saying anything, then it's probably inspiring, my nigga. Is my city gonna think I did it big enough? I've been on the grind, still they act like I ain't did enough. I've been seeing comments of people telling me give it up. I can hear them talking, but ask me how much I give a fuck, really? You either with me or against me though. Always been a buck with these niggas, what they resent me for. Like I ain't reppin' for my city, bro. Like I ain't trying to put my city on. 2016, thought I had it figured out. Cooking dope with Robert Skinny down at Genie House. Skinny wrote the hook, and when I started rapping, I could see my niggas tripping like magic was about to happen. I was only getting started, I told him that I would do it. Shed so many tears to prove it, thank God that he let me do it. You can never understand all the reasons for how I'm moving. If it wasn't for the music, be dead or I'd probably lose it. K-Zoo. My heart and soul go out to you. Always keep you really close, but it's some shit I'm going through. How I lose so many homies in this shit that I pursue. And how the city overlooked me when I did this shit for you. Is my city gonna think I did it big enough? I've been on the grind, still they act like I ain't did enough. I've been seeing comments of people telling me give it up. I can hear them talking, but ask me how much I give a fuck, really? You either with me or against me though. Always been a buck with these niggas, what they resent me for. Like I ain't reppin' for my city, bro. Like I ain't trying to put my city on.
Damn, see this shit crazy.
That was Rashad Lee from my city. This morning, I wanted to start with the House and Fraud Committee meeting that happened yesterday. But I wanted to start with the part where Judge O'Malley, who is the program integrity director for Minnesota, but I guess he's about to quit. So let's start with that. I'm not probably going to play the whole hour and 17, but we'll see.
So now we will move to our first presentation today. I would very much like to welcome Judge Tim O'Malley, the Director of Program Integrity, to the witness table for his presentation on his roadmap to program integrity and fraud prevention. Welcome to the committee, Judge O'Malley. We appreciate you being here and look forward to your testimony. You can begin by stating your name for the record.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Madam Chair?
Please just begin by stating your name for the record.
My name is Tim O'Malley, O-M-A-L-L-E-Y. I'm the Director of Program Integrity for the state of Minnesota.
Welcome. Please begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minnesota has experienced extensive, well-documented fraud in programs designed to serve the state's most vulnerable residents. The state's ineffectiveness in combating that fraud has wasted taxpayer dollars, enriched criminals, eroded public confidence, and impeded the delivery of essential services to Minnesotans in need. I was tasked with identifying contributing factors or causes, then offering recommendations based on those factors so that the state could improve its approach to preventing and combating fraud. The end product is the roadmap to program integrity and fraud prevention, which was issued 2 weeks ago. The review of past practices shows that going back at least a half century, every administration and legislative body was made aware of the vulnerabilities in program integrity. Until recently, the state's corrective actions to reduce or eliminate those long-standing vulnerabilities have been ineffective, and criminals have exploited those vulnerabilities to steal from the state. The review undertaken identified causes that are multifaceted and sometimes interrelated. The recommendations offered arise directly out of and correlate to those identified causes and contributing factors. The roadmap provides suggestions that could be part of a workable improvement plan, a way to re-engineer the state's approach so as to better prevent fraud in the future, and to prevent fraud particularly at the front end, before any money is lost, but also to detect fraud that is taking place more promptly and then take countering actions to stop it and claw back any monies that were already dispersed. The intent of the roadmap is to set the stage for long-term planning by identifying 9 pillars or areas for improvement. As mentioned, some are interrelated. Success in one area will be helpful in other areas. The 9 areas are: first, leadership, accountability, and culture. Accountability across the board and a fraud prevention mindset are needed for lasting improvements to succeed. Raising awareness and setting expectations. Everybody has a role to play in combating fraud, including state employees, leaders in the executive and legislative branches, managed care organizations, providers, and recipients. The second area, program processes and controls. Enhance enrollment and provider screening at the front end. Set standards and verifiable criteria, then apply those consistently across all programs and all funding types. There is an opportunity here to partner with MCOs, yet still oversee their activities. They have a vested interest in preventing fraud. This is one of the areas, the program processes and controls, is one of the areas being worked on by the Office of Inspector General's Coordinating Council. Waypoint is also working on standardization here so that there are consistent and fair approaches across all programs. The third area, administrative, investigative, and prosecutorial coordination. Create a more centralized approach to investigate suspicious activities and a more efficient way for information to be shared promptly among agencies and with law enforcement. Obviously, technology will play a role here. Use of investigative resources should be prioritized so that fraudsters are dealt with swiftly and legitimate providers are recognized for their proficient compliance actions. Also, utilize administrative tools and investigative resources to aggressively pursue overpayments and fraudulent disbursements. 4, training and workforce development. It's a very straightforward proposal. Raise awareness and emphasize that all have a role to play in combating fraud. Make it clear, employees, providers, recipients, whatever they do, if they see something that appears suspicious, ensure that the supervisors that gets reported to are equipped to follow through. Legislative actions. You have a lot of work in front of you. I understand that. I suspect one of the challenges for the legislature will be, in coordination with the executive branch, prioritize next steps and decide where funding should be allotted at this time. Some improvements will be costly, others not so much. I'll mention more about that in a moment. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't point out that the underlying causes are not exclusively the result of the actions or inactions of the executive branch. Past legislators, and not just those who served decades ago, but some who are serving still today, could have done more. The way program funding is set out in legislation and the influence that legislators have, both during the session and during other months of the year, have been contributing factors. Lastly, one recommendation is to do away with direct appropriations. Eliminate earmarks. Why substitute your judgment for that of skilled, trained employees with the expertise to vet applicants and potential providers? If there is a sole source best suited to carry out a project, that entity will emerge through the process. If that sole provider needs help navigating the process, the state already has in place ways to assist them so that they are capable of operating in compliance with requirements and can withstand the scrutiny that comes with the responsibility of receiving state funds. Technology and data modernization. This is the 6th area. This is a potent and essential area for improvement. Modern criminal schemes require modern tools. Data sharing, use of analytics, monitoring tools such as GPS, biometrics, cameras must be leveraged. 7, oversight and independent monitoring. We know that well-intended plans in the past were not successful. Independent oversight, similar to the type that accompanies consent decrees in other settings, would go a long way towards executing a plan that will be effective and will last. Stakeholder collaboration and engagement. The legitimate providers I've met with are committed to a greater good. They are skilled and capable. They have a grasp of the issues and the challenges. They want to prevent fraud as much as anyone else does. They should be at the table so that workable, practical solutions are ultimately implemented. The last factor, resource and capacity building. It's another straightforward recommendation. There are resources within the state government that could be reallocated and have been reallocated, and that should be expanded. For example, in the areas of auditing and data analytics. Expanding resources in those areas and funding new endeavors, such as with technology, is needed. Thus, the importance of the work of this committee and other committees that's taking place now in the House and Senate. As you consider the recommendations and prioritizing next steps and determining a budget, I would suggest that 2 areas in particular should be addressed sooner rather than later. One will be costly, but solutions are available. The other is less costly, but requires a focused and comprehensive approach. The first is technology. Using modern technology is a must. Real-time data sharing to support timely preventative investigative actions. Data analytics to support informed decision-making. Use of GPS cameras, biometrics. You can't pull a technological solution off the shelf, plug it in, and just think it's going to work that easily. Right now, state agencies are working to share data using antiquated systems, manual data entry, and fax machines. Agencies must have the ability to share accurate data real-time and use analytics to assess the massive amounts of data available. Criminals are using modern technology, and we're falling way behind them. Second one is oversight. A strong monitoring component is essential to achieve long-term success. History has proven that specific actionable steps to prevent fraud will not succeed without enforceable accountability across the board. Point persons should be identified and held responsible for effective implementation and execution. The types of sustained oversight and monitoring needed to achieve success should also include a level of public accountability. As a package, I believe these reforms will shift Minnesota from reactive enforcement, often years after the fact, to proactive prevention, creating a consistent, transparent, and enforceable system that protects taxpayer dollars, supporting legitimate providers and beneficiaries. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Judge O'Malley. At this time, I'd like you just to stay either at the witness table or briefly in the audience, and we're going to invite our first witness up, and then if you would be available for questions after her testimony.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to invite Faye Bernstein, DHS Compliance Manager.
This is a testimony that I think every voter in Minnesota needs to hear, because all that retaliation talk that we're hearing supposedly doesn't happen. Well, this is actually a person that went through that retaliation and can say that it's actually happening.
Good morning, Ms. Bernstein. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record to begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Robbins and members. My name is Faye Bernstein, B-E-R-N-S-T-E-I-N. I first want to just make a comment on the report and say the word that I think no one from DHS wants to hear again, but that's retaliation, the R word. I am a 20-year employee. I'm a current employee of DHS. And I am one of the very, very few DHS employees who can publicly speak about what the environment is there. We have a very large group. You probably have heard about the large group of employees who anonymously tweet and anonymously work with law enforcement and the OLA, et cetera. I have chosen to be public. I think it has certainly harmed me professionally, personally. It has harmed me in many ways to be public, but I feel like we have to just openly speak about the conditions at the Department of Human Services. The retaliation that I experienced was about 7 years ago. In the course of doing my job, came across some contract irregularities that I would consider in the scope of what we talk about today to be quite minor. But as minor as they were, it was not something that DHS leadership could hear. They just couldn't hear it. And as a result of me speaking about it, I was walked out of the building. I was banned from all DHS-owned and licensed property. So if you can imagine, the rest of the public can go to the Anderson building and can apply for SNAP, and I could not. I could not use the ATM. I could not use the cafeteria. I was not allowed in the building. I was investigated. That went on for months and months. I can only imagine the cost to the state of that investigation. And I've never spoken out about the results of the investigation, but I guess this would be as good a time as any. The results of months and months of investigation and asking my coworkers for examples of when I was racist, when I was threatening to do harm to leadership. The result of all of that was that I was found to have questioned the competency and the decision-making of the leadership in the Behavioral Health Division, and I was found to have held up contracts that had compliance problems. So let me just say, I plead guilty to both of those things. I absolutely did both of those things, and I'm doing both of those things today. I am very much questioning the competency of the leadership of the Department of Human Services. And I hate to do that because these are people I know very well. I think I know Commissioner Gandhi very well. I've had a lot of contact with her, a lot of time with her. But the actions, the mindset, I heard you use the term fraud prevention mindset. That is not present. That is not present at the Department of Human Services. I don't know if I would dare to use the word compassion, because compassion sounds as if it is the right thing to do. Compassion, when huge amounts of money are stolen, is not the right thing to do. There has been just tremendous mistakes. And yes, I have been affected. I certainly did not appreciate being humiliated and being accused of a race crime. I certainly did not appreciate that. But more importantly, when we think about people this winter had fingers and toes frozen off because the Department of Human Services had to shut down a program. So people without homes had real consequences, much more serious consequences than I had. I do not see how we can come through this and actually quit this year after year, decade after decade problem. I do not see how we can come through this without a massive change at the Department of Human Services in our leadership. There just really simply has to be firings. And I hate to say that. I hate to see people fired. But there is no other way to turn this around. There really is no other way. It is so entrenched. The need to retaliate against people who speak up, as I initially did in the most benign ways. The need to retaliate against people like me is so ingrained. It is through every step of the process. Every person that I spoke to about this as I was working up the chain of command to try to get the contract problem resolved, every person I encountered, I look back now and I realize I didn't get a satisfactory response from anyone, even our internal auditors. I thought at the time I was being heard, and I now realize that I wasn't at all. We have an OLA report that I guess I could have written it. It's exactly what I was saying 7 years ago. So thank you for letting me speak to this. It's very important to me. I think it's important to all of you, and I hope you really hear what I'm saying about we need a dramatic change at the Department of Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Bernstein. So now we are going to spend, I would say, the next roughly 55 minutes, members. So we are watching the clock, talking about this issue. We can ask questions of both of the witnesses. And then about 9:30, we'll switch to the periodic data matching conversation. So I have so many questions. First of all, Ms. Bernstein, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your bravery in speaking out publicly. I know this has been a long journey for you and your family, and we are grateful. I know you speak on behalf of hundreds of others at the department who are so grateful for your willingness to speak publicly when they don't feel they can, and for people who have left, and because they felt they were sort of hounded out, and you stayed to fight, and I think you're doing a great public service. So thank you very much. So to that end, I guess I'll let Representative Hudson go first. Will, if you can find your way to the testifier table, I think we're going to use a couple clips from you. So, Ms. Bernstein, if you wouldn't mind scooching over one, Will sit at your chair to hook up to the the monitors. Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I said last week, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is extraordinarily infuriating to hear. And I'm sure there's many members who have many questions, but there's a couple of points that I really think need to be driven home. My first question would be to you, Judge O'Malley. Based on what you saw in your investigation and putting together this report, were these fraud schemes primarily driven by sophisticated criminals who are just too smart for us, or were the weaknesses in our state oversight systems primarily responsible?
I apologize, Madam Chair and Representative. I'm very hard of hearing. If you
Sure.
could repeat that for me.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
So my question is, based upon your investigation, the report that you put together, were the fraud schemes that took place that have been documented and have resulted in prosecutions, were they primarily driven by the sophistication of the criminals who were involved? They're just smarter than we are, smarter than the state agencies, or were weaknesses, systemic weaknesses in our program integrity process the primary cause?
Judge O'Malley.
Or Madam Chair, Representative, both, I think. The vulnerabilities have been there for a long time, and now there are very organized criminal groups that are taking advantage of those vulnerabilities. I don't know that they're way ahead of us, but they are. They're sophisticated, they're organized, they move about, change names, change addresses.
I just want to go back. I want to show you something. And this goes back all the way into the early 80s. And I know I've talked about this before, but Casey Ramirez put a lot into a town, Princeton, Minnesota, and the airport, a couple police cars, even bought palm trees because it was named Miami of the North. And this goes back, this ain't nothing new. This isn't like in the early 2010s or early 2000s or maybe even the 90s. No, this is actually in the 80s. This is in the 80s where we had our people from the cartel. I shouldn't even say people because it was a person. But his money, and there was no questions really asked because they needed that money. And so this to me is people have done the wrong thing for years because of money. Because of money. It's never been about we need to do the right things. No. This was like, we're going to take this and we're going to be quiet because we know that it's bogus, but we need this money. We need this money. Spent a total of $2.5 million on this city. And back in 1984 or 1983, I don't even know when this article was, 1984. But a grand jury charged Ramirez as to use the Princeton airport as a base for importing and distributing cocaine. This was crazy, is that people don't really understand how far this shit goes back. They don't understand it. This shit has gone on for years. And guess who the attorney was? Mesh Besser. Everybody knows who's Mesh Besser and Spence is. I'm not saying that people don't deserve attorneys or don't deserve rights just because they have so-called dirty money. I know it's got blood on. I know what cocaine, what it does to families. I know what it's done to communities. And I actually know what it's done to my people. People, I don't think I've seen anything. Even just living, I was born in 1977. So I lived through the cocaine and then it became crack and then heroin and then it was meth and now it's fentanyl. But see, fentanyl is doing something that we had ODs, but the rate that we're having ODs is really out of pocket. And that's when I really had to draw a line in the sand. I didn't want to be a part of that problem anymore. I didn't want to be, because I was selling pills. I don't know how many times I had to tell my story. The night that George Floyd happened, I put a lot of shit in the toilet and flushed that shit because I didn't want to be a problem anymore. I wanted to be part of a solution, even though I knew it was going to be hard. I knew there was going to be people that disliked me. They don't like because they don't like to hear the truth. They like to keep on hearing these narratives or these made up ass stories. So it was never, I've noticed that it was never really honestly about the truth. It was always about what you could prove. Doesn't matter if you could see it. Didn't matter if it was in court documents. As we've seen, people lie. As we've seen with, forget that police chiefs. She wasn't a police chief then, but she would lied on the stand. And she didn't get perjury. It's because enough people were to combat that narrative. This is what I really want people to know, is that when it came down to George Floyd, we had a police chief in Arredondo. We had I forget her name and I can look it up, but I know it's Katie something. And she tried to sue Elpa News and Liz Collins, but ended up losing. Because if you read the articles and the things that she said on the stand, and then you had officers that were saying that she was lying. So I just want to say this is like, when people say that George Floyd died of an overdose, that's not what Derek Chauvin is in prison for. It's not what he's in prison for. So I really, truly don't understand that whole logic of, and I know that's where you have people that have never lived in the inner city and have never experienced police brutality because they think it's bullshit. They've never been. This is the thing that really bugs me when it comes to a lot of people. And this is the even problem that I have with Republicans, is they think that just because they're people sit behind a badge and like they don't do no wrong. I think and especially in Minnesota, especially since 2020, you can't sit here and say that no one has done harm to our communities. And it doesn't matter if it's the rich community. They just have money to bypass that shit. That's why it keeps on looking the way that it looks, like Edina or Chanhassen. And then you look into like Minneapolis when it comes down to like Nicollet Avenue or even downtown, the shit's dying out. That's not the way how I grew up. When I look at Minnesota now, and I remember Fire and Ice on Penn, not a liquor store, but Fire and Ice. And there's a lot of people here that don't remember that. There's a lot of, and that just shows you that, especially when it comes down to legislation, you have people here that aren't from here. They're not from Minnesota. So when people talk about that Minnesota nice, that shit been left adored. Because there's actually not enough people here that actually are from Minnesota that were born and raised. We have too many transplants. Too many. Let me get back to Judge O'Malley.
Do things like that, engage in multiple programs. They're able to do that in part because of some of the areas identified here that we just haven't stayed caught up, especially sharing data.
Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Judge O'Malley. I think it goes without saying that you don't have to be that sophisticated, Madam Chair, in order to hop a very low fence. And it's very clear from this report and from the testimony from Ms. Bernstein that the fence has been very low indeed. This reminds me of our most recent conversation in the Judiciary Committee, where we considered a bill to unredact the Optum report And during conversation on that bill, it was noted one of the concerns apparently from DHS, which we didn't really have a good opportunity to ask any of the people who were involved with the redaction because they didn't show up to that hearing either.
Damn.
But apparently one of their concerns is that were that report to be unredacted, it would present something of a roadmap for people who may not even be as sophisticated as the ones we've come across to engage in similar fraud. And if that's the case, what that means is that we know it.
Right.
Because somebody read it. Somebody wrote it. So we know what the roadmap is, which means we know what the problems are. And when someone like Ms. Bernstein from inside tries to say, this is a problem, we need to fix it, she meets with retaliation. And the type, I want to be specific about the type of retaliation she describes. She gets accused of being racist.
You know what? I just want to say this, right? Because I remember, and this is the thing that I want people, I was mad at Walter. I won't even say mad. It was, I seen him in a different light, and I still do see him in that kind of different light, because I remember all the way back in 2022 when I wanted to talk about the fraud. I shouldn't say wanted to, because I did. I did talk about the fraud, but I didn't talk about no Somalians. I didn't talk about no Somalis. I talked about the Black community, the things that I was seeing, the things that that you could back it up with evidence, and they still didn't take the shit serious. But now that it's about the Somalis, now people want to take it serious because it's political. Because it's political. And the same people that do the shit in the Black community are the same people that Walter runs to. Lisa Clemens, Shiloh Temple, Jerry McAfee. These are the same people that we're talking about, that y'all want to talk about the fucking Somalis. And we can back it up. Court transcripts. All kind of shit. Proof. And they still don't want that. You know what the problem is? The problem is always about the messengers. It's never, that's why I like Philip Parrish. That's why I like Philip Parrish, because actually, when I first got into this fight about trying to change, reform, trying to make the world a better place for me and for you, me and Phil were on the same side. If y'all, that's the one crazy thing. I remember going that Phil made a podcast. I think it was late 2020, or maybe it was early 2021. But he did a podcast. It was a lady who was a resident of Red Wing had got arrested on the January 6th shit. She got kicked off the plane. Then there was I don't know. I call him, I really don't say he's a racist or whatever, but he's not talking about Phil. God's name was John or somebody. And he was asking for a whole bunch of bikers and all kind of shit to come to Red Wing, and all because I asked people to do their Second Amendment right. If you were legal to carry arms. And actually, when I did the protest, not many people were carrying that day. Not many people were carrying, or at least you couldn't see it. And that's what like, what's crazy to me, even when it's about, like, they want to get rid of residential protesting. Why? When most of you motherfuckers don't even answer the phone or emails, none of that shit. So I don't really get it. How can you call yourself a public official that you're there for the people and you don't get shit? That's like the fucked up part for me, is like, you have legislators and senators that make, like, I think in Minnesota it's like $51,000 a year, and then they get per diem, like per day, when they're in a session, or even if it's a special session. Like, I don't even know anybody that makes over $51,000 a year. I don't even know no one. I I know managers at restaurants run the whole fucking joint. Don't even get $51,000 a year. Gas stations don't even get $51,000 a year. Like, if you want this title, you gotta, what comes with it? And that's what comes with it, public pressure. Don't be no little bitch. That's what I don't get. Because when they do shit like this is where I get pissed. Because I've done peaceful protesting. I've went to people's houses. I obeyed the law. That's what I don't understand when 10 o'clock came, which is noise ordinance. I had people be quiet. Then we were silent. Like, come on. And it wasn't us that were being a problem. It was the neighbors. Because we brought this is the one thing that I really want people to understand is when you go to protest at somebody's house, you got to expect that the neighbors are probably going to not like it. And I understand that. I understand that. So when 10 o'clock came, that's noise ordinance. That's the time to be quiet. People were quiet. We stayed on public property, the sidewalk. We held signs. We weren't trying to bring violence. We were tired. This is the one thing that I really want people to understand, because when it comes down to this shit, there's got to be a way that public pressure, because to me, you don't want to hear from the public. That's how I take this non-residential protesting bill. That's how I take that shit. It's like they don't want to answer for the bullshit that they do. That's how I really take that bill, because it's not about that you've been threatened, because that's against the law. If you've been threatened, if you have threats coming to your family, that's against the law. But if it's peaceful disruption, if it's people with signs on a public sidewalk that you don't own, you maybe have to mow the lawn on your boulevard, but that's not, you don't own that shit. That's not even your property. It's public. The city owns that shit. So every resident, everybody in Minnesota owns that shit. So I don't even understand that when people say, well, I don't want people protesting it on sidewalks and blah, blah, this, blah, blah. Like, do you really fucking hear yourselves? Do you really hear yourselves? Because I would expect, at least, the thing of it is, and that I really hate about I want to say I hate because that's a powerful word, but that I dislike, is that a lot of Republicans, they see a problem with the protesting. Even though some of the shit does work. It does work. I will say that. But it has to be strategized and organized. And a lot of the shit that goes on isn't. That's what I don't understand of, like, when it comes down to the Republicans. Minnesota is so fucked up, but they want people to follow the law when we know niggas who haven't and are still looked in because they have a title. Like, I don't really understand that shit anymore. I really don't. And that's why I get I will say this, I get frustrated, because it feels like you just want to turn the other cheek and not fight fire with fire. That's what I'm into this shit for. I want to live better than how I grew up. I want everybody to live better. I don't want anybody to have to make a law for Harvey's Law. Number one, that's what I wanted to talk about too, is like, how do you bring your children to a daycare and there's no cameras? I don't understand that. Because, like, I remember when Jasmine and Sabrina were kids, and I think Jasmine was a baby. They went to a daycare in Rochester that had cameras. You had to put their name and a password, and it didn't matter if they were in the sleeping room or they're in the playroom. You'd be able to watch your child. You'd be able to watch your child. That's why I disagree with them getting a cell phone. Y'all started this problem. So now let's try to I won't say solve it, but let's compromise on it because here's the thing, and I hope a lot of parents see this the same way that I do, because I hope a lot of parents see what happened at Udale or even in Minneapolis. It's not the police that are coming to help. It's us. It's not the police. It's us. We are who keep each other safe. So I don't get all that, some of the Republican shit, and I'm still one. I'm a conservative. And there's a lot of shit that I disagree with when it comes to the Republicans, but I super disagree with the Democrats. I super disagree with Democrats. And I'm not a lot of that shit I'm not okay with. I wasn't raised that way. I didn't grow up that way. It doesn't make me hateful. Doesn't make me that I'm homophobic. Doesn't make it that I'm transphobic or Islamophobic. Any of that shit. Doesn't mean none of that. And I'm tired of people trying to shove shit down my throat. And I'm not okay with it. Just because you are doesn't mean that I have to be. It doesn't mean that I have to be. And at the end of the day, I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're if you're trans. I don't have to go to bed with you. I don't have to lay with you. I don't have to be behind closed doors with you. So at the end of the day, I don't really give a fuck. You should be your human being. You deserve respect for just being a human being. But it's the part that everybody wants to be validated. You want to be validated as a gay black man. Don't you want to be validated as a black man first? Because that's the problem, is that a lot of people that consider themselves gay, lesbian, trans, they put that first in front of them being black or being white. They always want us to validate some shit. And there, to me, is the problem, is that y'all expect people that are not okay with that and who didn't grow up that way to be okay with it. Instead of trying to educate them, we're just automatically supposed to be okay with it. And that's the shit I don't get. And I keep on talking about this. I learned about 2 genders. Now it's like 72. I thought there was just male and female. I thought it was just male and female, but it's 2026. And I shouldn't even say that it happened before 2026, but they're teaching the 72 genders now. It's like, damn, I don't even get this shit. It's like, what happened to us just seeing each other as human beings? Because even I talk about my grandpa. The first black person that he ever saw that wasn't on television or in the newspaper, and he actually experienced, like had a interaction with, was when he joined the army. When he joined the army. So in his mind, in the way that TV programs people to the way they think, they seen that black people were garbage or monkeys or whatever you want to call it. But that's not, when he's seen that shit for himself, he'd be like, hey, that's not true. That's not even real. Just because we have some made up shit and that's what we're supposed to think and believe about a certain way about people, that doesn't mean that it's true. They get us to think one way when actually the real way is a whole, in reality, it's a whole nother experience. But because we're already judgmental, because of how we've been indoctrinated, not educated, indoctrinated, so we already dislike that person from the get-go. So let me get back to this.
Well, that is consistent. One of the ways, somebody might try to dismiss her account as anecdote. One of the ways to judge the veracity of testimony is to compare it against other evidence. And we have heard on tape Attorney General Keith Ellison meeting with people who would later be indicted and some convicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. And what was their entire premise of their complaint? The state agencies are being racist. And he bought into that. He said Wallsville's the same way. That is consistent with what we're hearing from Ms. Bernstein right now. So the question becomes, why retaliate? What possible motivation could you have? What innocent and benign explanation is there for the type of retaliation that she's describing? I can't think of any. But the culture seems to be very intentional. I'll leave it at that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Hudson. So to that point, Judge O'Malley, one of my questions, and I have many, but I'll try to intersperse them with my colleagues. One of my questions is, in your report, you talk several places about how it's important to reward employees who want to speak up, like Ms. Bernstein. And could you comment further on that? My understanding from the whistleblowers who've reached out to us is that that rarely happens. And clearly that's been Ms. Bernstein and many other people's experience. So I just wondered, could you elucidate more what you mean by rewarding people to speak out? And then specifically on page 47 or 46, I believe, of your report, you talk about how employees should report allegations of misconduct. And I found it very curious that you say they should report to their supervisor, go up the chain of the command, or report to external authorities, e.g. the OLA, law enforcement, or the governor's office. But we expanded the whistleblower protection law last year specifically to include legislators, and you did not. And in my experience, people who went up the chain of the command got retaliated against. People who went to the Attorney General's office got ghosted. I have multiple whistleblowers saying that. And yet in your report, you leave off the one group to whom whistleblowers have reported the most and felt the most comfortable with. So could you explain, A, what you mean about how we support people who speak up? You never actually referred to retaliation or whistleblowers that I found, but that's, I think, what you're addressing without calling it out. And then secondly, why did you not include legislators in that list?
I'll answer the second question first, Madam Chair, if that's all right. I use those as examples. I should have included the legislature, clearly. I didn't mean that to be an exclusive group. I just meant that if you are not receiving the proper responses, people are not acting on that, then go outside your agency. Go to law enforcement, go to the governor's office, go to the legislature, go to the OLA, go to anybody, but bring attention to the concern. So I apologize for not including the legislature. In terms of encouraging people to speak up, I have met with several both concerned citizens, whistleblowers, employees, former employees who have raised the same concerns that Ms. Bernstein raised. They did bring those forward. Many of them did. They were not satisfied. Some of them were not satisfied with the responses. The few that I was able to dig into more deeply and go through the records of the investigation, I found that they followed the processes and that they were investigated. One side or the other side might not be satisfied with the outcome, but I was able to verify that they were addressed. Whether all of those were addressed as adequately as they could have been, I'm not sure. I suspect that more may come forward now with the attention brought to this, and I hope they do. And that was the point of this Appendix E, was that when that happens, we should make sure that not only HR, but law enforcement and others are prepared to thoroughly investigate that, gather accurate information, and make informed decisions, not gut reactions, not emotional decisions, not, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. No, get to the real facts and then hold people accountable. And those that are doing the right thing, reward them.
Great, thank you. I'll come back to some other questions I have. Next, we have Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Judge O'Malley, hearing Ms. Bernstein and then hearing you say that this is something that almost appears pervasive based upon your 1 month's worth of interviews that you did with folks within agencies. I'm curious if you, and this kind of follows the same lines as what Chair Robbins mentioned a moment ago, but what clear consequences do you recommend to these supervisors or people in some level of management that appear to not have taken action?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair, Representative, I think it runs the full gamut. Again, but based on accurate information. Get the facts straight. People make allegations, and sometimes they're well-founded, sometimes they're not. If a supervisor, a commissioner, especially a first-line or second-line supervisor who have the responsibility to carry this forward, if they don't deal with it properly, it could go anywhere from coaching because they don't understand to a form of discipline to termination. It depends on really a case-specific analysis of what took place.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm glad to hear you say that because one of the things that has been clear is that very few, if any, people have been fired within these agencies. At least it hasn't been public. And if we're listening to what other whistleblowers have said, it's that they've been retaliated against. They've faced essentially penalties for their actions, and the people up the chain have not. I mean, in the case of Commissioner Gandhi, who's been a compliance officer, a chief compliance officer, I believe, she's now the permanent commissioner of the Department of Human Services. That seems like failing upwards. And if what we're hearing from Ms. Bernstein is accurate and in line with the other whistleblowers that you have said to speak to, my question for you is the promotion of Commissioner Gandhi has happened while you have been around. So my curiosity is, if our whistleblowers are saying that we have a pervasive problem within leadership, why aren't we seeing firings today?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair and Representative, as you mentioned, I've been at this for about 4 to 6 weeks, and I've met with a lot of people. I thought it was important to gather this accurate information and get it in front of the legislature while you're still in session. I don't know that I would conclude, as you have, that it's pervasive, the concerns. They're very important concerns. I have dealt with a few of or addressed and met with and followed up on a few of the allegations of retaliation, accusations of racism, those kinds of things. As far as Commissioner Gandhi and accountability for leadership, I didn't know her prior to when I started this a couple of months ago. I will tell you that if there's good news here, and there is, every state employee I met with seems to me has a very strong commitment to helping solve this problem. They've been forthcoming, they've been cooperative, they've been very responsive to my requests. They provided any information I wanted. They adjusted their schedules, and they're working together on new approaches. I can't speak to Commissioner Gandhi's past as well as I can to having worked with her over the last couple of weeks, month, but she fits in that same category of being responsive and I think working hard to try and solve this problem.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, as you know, this huge level of fraud that we've seen across Medicaid-funded programs appears to, all be within the lens and the time at which she has been at the agency and in a key compliance role. So when we're considering the fact that $9 billion has been the expectation that has been stolen from the taxpayers, and she was in those positions, and now she's the permanent commissioner, how are the people in Minnesota supposed to have faith in that? So I'm going to turn this around more so to what you mentioned in the first pillar, just talking about senior leadership, talking about how this can rise to creating a culture of stewardship of taxpayer dollars and program integrity. Do you think that the governor and his top officials have done enough to create that culture?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair, Representative, today I think that is actually taking place, very much so. I think that everybody's watching, everybody's paying attention. Here's the opportunity to make permanent changes that can make a difference. My job was to look back at those underlying factors, and they go back, as I said, a long ways. A lot of people played a role in this. Leaders in the executive and legislative branches, employees, providers, criminals, obviously. But to look at those and then project something for long-term solutions, and that's what the roadmap was designed to do. Is there more that can be done? Absolutely. I believe that the people in place now have the skill set to do that and are trying to do that. They're trying to achieve a balance between holding fraudsters accountable and supporting legitimate providers. And there's some tough decisions that have to be made, and they're making them in short order. But I think now's the time to put together a more comprehensive package so that that balance is achieved.
Last one,
Yes,
Representative
thank you,
Schultz.
Madam Chair. This is interesting because I believe both in front of our committee as well as in the last couple of weeks, we have heard, I believe it's been the agency, say that they were too lenient, that they essentially spent, what was it, like 70% of their time or their principal being benevolent and generous rather than compliant with the law. How have you seen that change? And when considering that range, where do you believe the state should be in regards to compliance or benevolence?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair, Representative, I'm in 100% agreement with you there. It's in the report, the 70-30, 60-40 cuts. There was a mindset that has to change. I think there are a lot of state employees, especially at DHS and other agencies, where they are motivated by this feeling of compassion for those that need help. And I would agree with Ms. Bernstein that compassion sounds soft and noble, right? And it is to some extent, but that's not the state's responsibility in my mind. The state's responsibility is to protect the money. If I want to help people in need, then I should do that directly. I should go out and deliver the wheelchairs, drive people to their medical appointments, do the bed baths, do those kinds of things. State employees don't do that. They need to have their highest priority making sure that the money that goes out from the state to those people who do provide the direct services, that money is used for its intended purposes and no other purpose. That's the way that they can help people who are most vulnerable and in need of these services.
Thank you. Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple of questions here about the report. First of all, I would note that in Appendix B, I'm sorry, am I coming through? Okay. In Appendix B, you talk about, how this problem stretches back decades across multiple legislatures and multiple administrations. So this isn't a new issue.
Is what?
This isn't a new issue, yeah. But, one that we're addressing very strongly right now. But, and then elsewhere, I want to go back. I want to drag my colleagues here into the weeds on a couple of things that I think that are, you and I might be the only ones who appreciate them sufficiently, but let's bring them out. So on page 9, you talk about employing universal identifiers. Implement ID numbers for providers, grantees, and recipients, and so on. Why is that so important?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Representative, I'm sorry, could you say that again? You're on page 9, is that what you said?
I'm on page 9, it would be 2E.
He's talking about employing universal identifiers.
Yeah, employ universal identifiers.
And the question is why, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, and the question is why is that important?
Why is that so important?
Sure. Some of the entities that are committing the fraud with the greatest damage are gaming the system by changing addresses, emails, names, those kind of things. If we had a universal identifier for each person, each entity, each business, each nonprofit. Then when they change the names or whatever it might be, I think it'd be much easier to track it. Right now, there are, it's a paper system almost, where you fill it out, you get it in, it goes to one agency. They'll look at that, and it might look fine on paper. So they provide the funding, they start enrolling applicants. That same entity might have a different name, a different address, a different email, and be in another program. And they're still getting the money there, or they've been denied from that program, but Program A doesn't even know that Program B has denied them.
Yeah.
Representative Elkins.
Yeah, to follow up. So, Judge O'Malley, are you familiar with the Login MN program?
Judge
Madam Chair,
O'Malley.
Representative, yes, I am.
Okay. And do you think that that would solve this particular problem if it was broadly employed in these DHS programs, such that everyone had to acquire their unique identifier through Login MN and use it to enroll either as a provider or a recipient in these programs?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair and Representative, yes, I do.
All right, thank you.
Representative Elkins.
And then there's a lot of discussion here about the importance of data sharing. And because the legislature last year did sweep away any legislative barriers to the sharing of data across agencies in order to address this problem. So we've handled any legal barriers getting in the way of data sharing, but you would agree that having the technology in place to facilitate the actual physical data sharing has got to be an important part of the technology plan?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair and Representative, absolutely. I believe a lot of the legal barriers have been removed. It's in part a matter of educating those who are sharing the information to make sure they understand their authority and the privacy concerns that go with that, and limiting that information to only those who have a direct business need to do it. But because that's in place, the answer, I think, is highly reliant on technology.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Elkins. I will get to you in just, well, go ahead, Representative Anderson, then I'll have my next question.
Thank you, and this goes along with that. So first of all, I want to thank you. I read your report 2 weeks ago. It's excellent. And I think if we implement this, we will solve the vast majority of the problems. So I really, really want to thank you for doing this. I'm not sure, I don't believe that we can solve the accountability and the culture problem with legislation. This is about, we all know, I want to get to the heart of this. We all know there's going to be a new administration. We don't know who that's going to be, but we know that's going to happen next year. And whoever that governor is, they're going to probably spend their first 2 years cleaning this up and fixing this. And that's what they should do. And we're going to have new people, we're going to have new leadership, we'll probably have new commissioners. It always happens, no matter which party wins that race. But I want to do things that we can do now this session and actually get things set up. Representative Elkins has, I support the technology upgrades. I support additional oversight. Whatever we can do, I think it's the best use of our money this session to spend the money to upgrade the tech, especially for the counties. And we need to get that done. I've been waiting to see, the governor talked about his fraud package, and he said a lot of the ideas were Republican ideas, and doesn't matter which party. But I haven't seen it yet, and I don't know if anyone knows where it's at, but we are 2 weeks from deadlines at this point, and that is really, really, really important. So does anyone know, do you, Judge O'Malley, know where that's at? Are you working on that? The legislative language, does?
Judge O'Malley.
Madam Chair and Representative, I do not know about that, and I'm not working on that language at this point.
Okay, thank you. Representative Pinto, do you know where that's at?
Madam Chair, if I...
Yes, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Anderson, I know the governor had announced that package, and I know that it takes time to get language through the reviser. I'm not sure of exactly that process, but I mean, I would assume that is in process. We just know whenever there's agency proposals, it takes a while for the reviser to come out with language, if that's what you're talking about. I know the governor had announced some details of his proposal.
Thank you, Representative Pinto. And once again, I would like to note for the record that if the agency was here, we could ask them directly, but they are not present with us today to take questions. Representative Anderson.
Thank you. It's frustrating because that's what we should be doing. And rather than, we all have these fraud bills, little things are picking away. I have a hearing and one tomorrow, I think. But we need to do the comprehensive package. And, we could write it. I assumed it was being drafted by at least the beginning by the governor's office, but that it has to get done. We're running out of time. So thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to go back to a couple of things, Judge O'Malley, that I'm picking up on what Representative
Muted. That was crazy. Whoops, my bad. I just was fucking muted. Wow. I didn't even see that. My bad, y'all. But I'm going to get up out of here for the day. I'll be back tomorrow. I wasn't here yesterday or Friday. I had some shit going on, but I will be back tomorrow. So with that being said, here is Dot Trip, To Be Loved, Peach and Starlito, and I'll see y'all same time, place tomorrow.
I just wanna be loved. 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 Pick up my daughter 3 days a week, then we alternate weekends. Holidays is beef, but on our off days we friends. Fear none of you fuck niggas, that's why I got this FN. MC with a hammer, stay with a 357. Rarely forgive, so I don't expect for you to reciprocate. It's cool. Like he ain't got it like that. Sound like something a bitch to say. You niggas would rather see me crash out and boost the conviction rate. I just wanna be loved, I'm accepting what comes with it, except when it's cosmetic. I don't like making up. Say what you mean and stand on it. That or don't say too much. Afraid of my rage for my little one. Say, can you pray for us? I had to step out. I wrote this here from my granny's porch. So much anxiety, like the kind they prescribe Xanax for. An adrenaline rush, just like driving a Panamera in sport or a